The Swamp Thing, issue 8, Ram V, Mike Perkins, wrapping up this trip to the forest that we've had these last few issues, and the flashbacks that have went with them, kind of getting to understand Levi a little bit more and his backstory, but at the same time not having a complete definitive answers to exactly how or why the green connected to him, although there's definitely some implications and hints sprinkled throughout this story. He's fighting Chemo, as we set up last issue. A lot of fun stuff. Peacemaker's coming for him as well during all of this. But then, of course, Parasite jumps out having consumed a lot of the green. So we get Uber Parasite fighting Swamp Thing.
Very Doomsday-esque.
Very Doomsday-esque. I mean, it was hard not to think of Hulk and Abomination during this as well. You know, a lot of similar kind of visuals. But this idea, he looks into Parasite's past, specifically his origin, and the man that became Parasite, and kind of like that leads to him thinking about his own past again. And we learned last issue. I don't were you here for last issue when we found out about the?
I literally read that issue today.
Okay, so we found out about the father being shot, and it was not Levi's fault directly, but it was a protest against his company, and all of the guilt that goes along with that. And here he sees his mother doing a march in the street with his brother. He goes to see his father, and his father... We'd heard part of this before. We'd seen his father forgive him. I think that was even way back in issue 1 or 2. We got like part of this deathbed.
It was definitely a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, this deathbed scene. But here we get this idea of Swamp Thing being in the room, and kind of this maybe being the moment where the regret and the trauma and the emotions kind of being what opens the door in many ways to Swamp Thing.
This is kind of where he was chosen.
Which is interesting because we speculated so much about his brother. And what's funny is that this issue does actually flip it back around to say, no, his brother is involved in some stuff and he's important and there's a lot of relevant stuff with his brother. But his brother isn't like responsible for him being Swamp Thing. His brother actually wanted to be Swamp Thing, kind of. He thought he was the important one, the special one that cared more about the green and all these things.
And has his own plans for what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so he's going by Hedera now, and he's got antlers. just to throw that out there. And basically, he talks about how the green, you don't understand it, brother, you never did. And I like how we basically see like maybe the seed for why one of them was chosen to be the new avatar of the green was when they were kids and their mother did this ritual on them. And I like how they're actually color coded here because you can tell Levi's got the green like necklace on. It's the old Power Rangers logic. Whereas his brother has an orange necklace on, and that's actually the color he's mostly kind of like embodying right now with the fire and all that.
Even his lettering, like the bubbles have like an orange outline.
Yeah. So they've definitely just instantly made that his color.
Which I think is really interesting, given that Swamp Thing also uses orange. Quite considering all the lettering in this, whenever Swamp Thing speaks, it's an orange bubble with black text instead of white. Whereas Hedera, it's just an orange outline. He's just on the fringe of the green, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you could make that connection. I think just from a color point of view, orange is a nice contrast to green, which is probably why it was chosen for Swamp Thing's boxes in the first place.
I assume that's why it was chosen for that in the first place, but the reason for choosing this and just using the outline, it's hard not to see the symbolism of like linking the two like that.
Oh sure, but I'm thinking of the character in general being more orange, and presentation means that he contrasts directly with the color of Swamp Thing, so there's I could see a lot of that going on. It's actually him that kind of like rips the green out of Parasite and kind of like has some form of control over it. And he talks about how the trees all expect us to eventually see things the way they do, but I think it's time the green learned what humans actually are, and talks about them being corruption and so on and so on.
It talks about how the only reason there is a Swamp Thing, an avatar chosen from the humans, is to try and teach humans, what it means, and to be better. And Hedera is just no, they're never going to be better. You need to learn anger almost,
which I think makes him an interesting antagonist because, well, and for two reasons. One, just in a general sense, that is obviously a very jaded, cynical, dark way of looking at the world. This idea that we can never be better, so we might as well sort of give in to like what we are, or in the extreme case, maybe he's even suggesting, oh, I should help the Green annihilate the human race or take over again or whatever.
Classic nihilism, right?
Yeah, nihilism, right? But I also like it from the perspective of the characters that in the flashbacks before, Levi was the one who really didn't believe in the trees, didn't believe in the green, didn't believe in the spirituality of the forest. His brother did. And while his brother's not turned his back on that, he still talks about the green as a living thing. He still he still talks about it as believing in its presence. But the idea that he sort of turned on humanity and kind of like, basically what I'm trying to say is that Levi came across as the cynic before, and his brother came across as the more spiritual one. But now it's kind of flipped in a weird way.
I think in some ways that's possibly why Levi was chosen. You don't need to convert the the believer already. He already believes. Whereas by choosing the non-believer and converting it, you gain someone. Obviously, it's backfired a little bit that they lost someone because of that choice.
Yeah, or alternatively, you could also argue that maybe they sensed something in his brother that suggested maybe we shouldn't pick him because maybe he has this, this potential to be this, or even just that classic idea of like the right person to take on any sort of job with responsibility or position of power, in a real world sense, in a comic book sense, we're maybe talking like people who are chosen to be superheroes. Is that the best people for the job are the ones who don't crave it in the first place, because they're the ones that will actually take it seriously. They're not like, oh, I'm attracted to making these big decisions and having power.
Yeah.
So then it's about having the power. The people who are reluctant are the ones that tend to end up doing a better job because they take it seriously. They see it as this. The reason why they didn't want it in the first place is because they knew how much responsibility and how much of a burden it would be, and like how much, all that stuff adds up. So I think that's, there's a lot of facets here to kind of like break down the two characters and kind of get to know his brother as an antagonist. And his brother lets him go. He's like, yeah, go and take out the device that's like corrupting the forest, which of course turns out to be from, Levi's company that he works for. Surprising absolutely no one, but that's okay. It's because it's not sold as a surprise. It's kind of sold as this sad thing where you think he kind of already suspected it. It doesn't come as across as like a shock to him, I don't think. It's just a look. It's just a sort of look at the logo, but it's kind of like this feels more like it's confirming like a fear that he wasn't willing to admit, rather than a huge shock to the system.
The dialogue from his brother is look upon its origins and despair.
Yeah, so
I would say despair is the right word for his reaction.
Yeah, so it's incredibly sad. It's kind of this realization that where he was working for is not good news. He has a fight with Peacemaker here. At the end, and it's interesting because he, instead of just winning the fight, he actually takes out Peacemaker's bomb, and says, "Hey, my vines will replicate the readings that it's supposed to get. They'll never know that you're not, implanted anymore. So you're free. If you want to make peace, go away, go away, and the peace will be had." So again, just another sign of Levi's kind of like intelligent compassion as the Avatar of the Green. But we see that his brother is flying to the US. He's at JFK Airport in the last page. And perhaps more interestingly, we get the people at the company, the CEO, whoever, the owner. Prescott, thank you. I guess it makes sense that would be his name. Yes.
I'm just assuming so.
Yeah.
That would be logical.
But yeah, we see him, and it's the dark boardroom with everyone's in the shadows, and basically, okay, Amanda Waller's failed. So it turns out Amanda Waller was doing something on their behalf by sending in the Suicide Squad. Oh yeah, this is Amanda Waller 101. But we're going to have to switch tactics, and he says, go pick up Jennifer Reese quietly. So Jennifer, who's been absent for a couple issues, obviously, while we've been in this forest, is now coming back into the story in a very intimidating way, because that last panel, the figure with the scar and shadow, like, is very much like she's going to get kidnapped and going to be in jeopardy. So we're getting into these final two issues. Although Matt was reassuring me last week that Ram V has basically indicated that season 2 of this is
I
pretty much confirmed.
It is confirmed.
I mean, obviously this book's been fantastic. This what trio of issues of the flashbacks while he's been in the forest have been, and the flashbacks have been interesting because I remember when we talked about the first issue of this arc, you weren't super into it because you felt the Suicide Squad were kind of in the way.
It was just kind of there. I think the second issue in particular out of this three was the strongest.
I'd probably agree with that. This one has a big plot ramification of his brother being like directly involved in present day ongoing. Not just that, but straight up being an antagonist, which, and it's not. It didn't feel like a big thing. Like, oh, his brother's like something now too. It kind of just felt like it fit the story that his brother, who has been very heavily seeded throughout all those flashbacks, is going to play a role in this. So, and they did a lot of things in this issue as well, where they showed like him wearing that mask, being in that march, wearing that kind of ceremonial attire and things like that. So they were kind of planting these seeds throughout all these flashbacks that there was more to this with him.
Yeah, and don't worry, I still enjoyed this issue quite a lot.
And in fact, from issue 1, we've been saying it sounds like his brother's somewhat responsible for whatever happened to him. So
yeah, we just didn't quite know how, and we still don't know exactly, but we're getting closer.
Yeah. So I would say like this run is definitely broken down into parts. It definitely feels like 1 to 4 were apart. We got a one single issue sort of fill in kind of, and it was very good though. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic issue, but even one of the best issues of the whole book. And then we had this 3-parter, and then it seems like we're going to get like a 2-parter to wrap things up of this season 1, if you will.
Yeah, I'm down for that. It's only 10 issues, and you managed to get like 4 sections out of
that. Yeah. So, you know, because I presume that issue 10 will have a neat ending. It may have a cliffhanger, but it'll definitely feel like a cliffhanger that was designed to be a lasting cliffhanger for a bit.
I'm more okay with it if it is a cliffhanger now that we know there is a season 2 coming.
Oh, it'd have been maddening if we didn't know.
yeah, that would have been frustrating. I mean, I would have had a little bit of faith if he knew, if the creative teams know, like if they know that they've got more, it's fine. You can leave us in suspense for a little bit. But knowing that, no, it's definitely coming. If it is just a full on, just cliffhanger, whatever, I'm okay with it. We're only going to be waiting a few months, probably.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Swamp Thing issue 8?
I'm giving 8.5. It's a real solid issue.
Yeah, I concur.
It sounds a bit like 8.5. It's solid. Like for this book, that's on the lower tier still, I think, overall, compared to what it has been given. But compared to other books, an 8.5 is, very, very good.